Hello everyone, Nathan here, and for the past few days or even weeks, I've been desperate to get my hands on Battlefield 1. But with the beta not out yet, I've had to find another way to scratch that shooter itch, and the game I've been using to do that has been Day of Infamy. So today I thought I'd bring you some of my opinions on this early access shooter. So what is Day of Infamy? Well, it's a World War II shooter from the guys who made Insurgency. In fact, if you ever played Insurgency, you'll notice a lot of similarities in this game. It values both teamwork and realism above pretty much anything else. And in terms of that teamwork, basically if you're not working with your team in a coordinated defense or push on the enemy, you're gonna have a much harder time. Once you realize that you can utilize artillery and smoke and have the whole team push up when that happens, everything gets so much easier. It's also extremely useful to get callouts from your teammates as to where the enemy are hiding. Because of the realism element, you can die pretty much instantly from a single shot, and so many times I've died without having a clue how it happened. And as there's no kill cam to identify where you get killed from, being able to pool knowledge with your team and let everyone know where the enemy are and what to watch out for becomes vital. Now that does lead to one of the first issues I have with the game, which is that any match can be very easily ruined by having poor teammates, and unless you're going into a match with a group of friends, you're unlikely to get the absolute most out of Day of Infamy. Fortunately though, most of the people I've come across are pretty decent at the game and understand what's going on, and if you're not worried about being that badass who destroys the entire enemy team, and you're just someone who wants to get a real World War II shooter experience, there are very few games better than Day of Infamy for making you feel like you're right in the middle of a massive battle. From storming the beaches of Normandy to fighting street to street in the heart of Italy, the experience of this game is top notch and adds enormously to the appeal of the game. I mean, watching an artillery bombardment rain down from the sky is both awe-inspiring and terrifying. And just watching that artillery come down makes me realise how bloody useless I would have been in any actual war. Because just seeing that made me feel tense about coming out of cover, and I have no real consequence to doing so. Now that's not to say that I'm any good at this game either. In fact, I'm pretty poor. In order to become a good player at this sort of game, you need to unlearn some of the things that modern FPS has taught you over the years. For example, camping isn't always a bad idea, and one player cannot do it all by themselves. Also, don't just shoot at everything you see because friendly fire is on, at least in the main game mode, and unfortunately you'll probably be forced to play on that mode, because for the moment at least, the player count for this one isn't exactly that high. There's a couple of other small issues I'd like to point out too. Firstly, the game doesn't look very pretty. In fact, in places it looks downright ugly, with texture quality that wouldn't have looked out of place maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Now, it's not the biggest issue in the world, and for most people the gameplay will more than make up for this shortcoming. But with New World Interactive's other game Insurgency getting an Unreal 4 engine update, I don't see why Day of Infamy couldn't have been made from the start on Unreal 4, and I feel the graphical upgrade that would have offered would have greatly benefited the game. Now my next issue with the game is kind of tied into that, because a game that looks like this one does has no right to run this poorly. You might have noticed throughout the video that there's a small FPS counter in the top right corner of the screen, and if you've been watching it, you'll have seen several drops into the 50s and even 40s. Now the game is in early access, and that kind of optimization usually comes fairly late in a game's development, so this easily could be fixed. But running on a PC like the one I've got, I would expect a game that looks like this to be pushing the top end of my 144Hz monitor. Don't get me wrong though, I've seen far worse performance from other early access games. It's just a little bit annoying that I feel like this game could be doing a lot better. Finally then, before we come to some sort of conclusion on Day of Infamy, I should probably talk about one of the most important aspects of any shooter, the gunplay. Day of Infamy has a good selection of authentic World War II guns, from the iconic Sten to the frankly terrifying in combat flamethrower, otherwise known as the Flammenwerfer for the Axis, awesome word by the way. The guns feel fun to use with a good amount of recoil, and you'll absolutely have to adapt your playstyle depending on which gun you're using, as the effective range of different guns varies wildly. It's not all rosy though in the gunplay department. Firstly, you'll mostly be using iron sights, which, despite being historically accurate, make it very difficult to see and track your targets at times. Often you'll just have to spray and pray at the general area that your enemy is in. And on certain servers, kill notification isn't even on, so you'll often not know if you even killed the enemy. Also, the abundance of guns that can kill in one shot from any range means that combat often takes place across great distances, and without a scoped gun, you'll find yourself pinging shots at tiny dots across the map. Other than those couple of minor issues though, the combat does definitely feel satisfying, and even getting just 2 kills in your life feels like an achievement. Well, at least for me anyway, because it only happened a few times. So overall then, I've certainly been enjoying Day of Infamy, and while it'll probably never get the mass market appeal of a Call of Duty or a Battlefield, it's far more directed and niche than that, and for a certain group of people, it will be an incredibly enjoyable game. As for whether or not you should buy it, well, with a £15 price tag in its early access state, I'd say that it's probably worth your time if you liked what you've seen in this video. Of course, it might be more sensible to hold off until the game is more feature complete, but what's there right now is still, in my opinion, worth the asking price. Anyway, that's about it for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd be very appreciative if you'd leave a like down below. Let me know what you think of Day of Infamy in the comments, and subscribe for more like this if you haven't already, such as my thoughts on the Battlefield 1 beta. Anyway, thanks for watching, I've been Nathan, and I'll see you next time.